Yeah, it's like the podcast audience just walked into our world.
They're just allowed to be there for a couple of hours.
Oh, welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hi there. Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Didn't expect you to be here.
Sit on my knee. Oh, sorry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pretty Random Podcast. This week's special, we're going back in time again, but not as far as the first episode. We're going back to the 90s this week. So this week I'm joined by Holly.
Hola.
Craig.
Hello.
And brand new, first time popping his cherry on this podcast, Mr. Tim Fisher.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here.
It is great to have you here. So this isn't your first podcast rodeo, though?
No, it's not. I got back to the UK last year after living in Australia for 15 years. And over there we did a podcast under the guise of the Gamers Make the World Go Round banner. So look it up. There's some...
Is that still available?
They're still available. I don't think they're still being produced.
Okay.
Hi, James. And
shout out.
You're still getting royalties from it, I'm assuming. Like
extensive royalties. Yeah. So that's right. So it was... I can say this now because I'm not working for that company anymore, but it was basically just avoiding work, sitting in an office and talking about video games.
You did it during work time?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We need to sort this out.
Yeah, technically we did get paid to do it.
That's amazing.
And when our head of sales walked in and said, "What are you doing?" And we said we were talking about video games, he sat down and joined us. Turned out that he was like a massive he was like a one-trick pony, though. It was Call of Duty for him. So he did a special off the cuff there. And then left, so we think we have permission to carry on doing this for a while. So it was good fun. So,
nice.
But similar kind of ethos to Pretty Random. And if they would ever come to the UK, then they would probably just slip straight into this and feel right at home.
Well, there you go. That's a teaser coming up. Like worlds collide.
It's like
Australia, England merging.
The Infinity War of podcasts.
Yeah. And then if we'll go over there and it'll be Endgame.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
absolutely.
I was going to say like the cricket, but that's probably not very relevant at the moment, is it?
No.
Oh.
It's not really relevant on the podcast about the 90s anyway.
We were losing then, we're losing now.
Yeah. So the brief backstory as well is Tim went to school with myself and Craig, and we've known each other since, and he moved to Australia for how many years?
I went out there in 2002 to travel, came back here for a bit, and then was out permanently from 2005 till last year. And so, and I was alive in the 90s, and I think that's my criteria for being here.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. Like when we talked about the 80s, we said that it was relevant and interesting because we had two of us who were born in the 80s and two of us that were born in the 90s. So it was a retrospective from one point of view and kind of a retrospective, but not like looking back on it as not actually being there. So that was a really interesting dynamic. Now this time we've got three people that were born in the 80s who grew up through the 90s.
Yeah.
And then Holly, who was born in the 90s, who had probably the bleed over of the 90s, both in terms of, like pop culture and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes. I think more than anything, I think it would be interesting to see what your idea of what was happening.
Yeah, whilst you guys were like teenagers and I was like on my tricycle, like, yeah.
I was on a trike in the 90s.
Like Tommy Pickles in the Rugrats.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was like.
So we're going to go
While we were pushing each other around in shopping trolleys in the 90s.
Yes, and the 2000s. And the 2010s, actually, now I think about it. I've got a video of one of those.
Just the other night.
Yeah. So we're going to go with a very, not very different format this week, but we're leading with brass facts so that we can get all our facts on the table. And then we're going to go through and we're going to do 4 topics. I'll tell you in advance, we're doing fashion, music, movies, and TV. We are purposefully omitting games, although they will probably be touched on, so that we can do a more in-depth look at that on another episode. Because I think if we talk about too much of that, that's a lot of material gone for the future. With the fashion one, I want you to think about what you think fashion in the 90s was, Holly. Okay, so think about that whilst Craig goes with brass facts.
Oh, brass facts. Okay, I got some shiny ones hopefully for you.
Oh, shinies.
Shiny brass facts. All right, so I'm going to start off with a a fact about NSYNC. As you know, very popular band in the 90s.
Yeah.
The Reverend JT heading up the crew.
Good old noodle hair.
So, the name NSYNC was actually made up by Justin Timberlake's mum. And it was made up by using the last letter of all of the members' first names. So, Justin, last letter of his first name is N. Chris, last letter S. Joey, last letter Y. Jason, last letter N. And JC, last letter C. So that's how they got the name NSYNC. But Jason was replaced because Jason left the band early on in the career and was replaced by Lance.
I knew there was one. He's Lance Bass, isn't it?
Yeah, Lance Bates, who was actually replacing Jason, who was the bass singer of the band. They needed a new bass singer, and Lance Bass came in. But obviously, Lance finishes with an E, so they nicknamed him Lanston. So they could keep the N at the end of his name.
There's a lot to unpack in that.
God.
Like, how much time did NSYNC, Justin Timberlake's mum have?
She's a hero.
She was like in between Sudoku sets or something. She was like cobbling together all these secret codes.
Yeah, what was her methodology? I mean,
I have no. I
She was like sat in a room for like 5 days and 5 nights.
who delegated her that role?
Justin.
I reckon Justin was the whip cracker.
Yeah.
Mum,
He'd been part of the Disney
Mum,
Club.
I want some dinner.
Wasn't his-
a name for our band?
No, I'm thinking of Usher. Usher's mum is his manager, isn't she?
Oh, I don't know.
I think so, but I don't think it was the same with JT.
My point is gone.
No,
Flown away.
but Jason left because he didn't like the direction that the music was going.
There's always one, though, isn't
What
there?
direction did he want to take it in?
Well, maybe non-popular, like not make a lot of money music.
Right.
I don't know. I bet he's kicking himself.
Oh, he wanted
after
to be like
left,
an
but-
experimental jazz version.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, bye, 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 boom, 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 boom. That's
But yeah,
the only
he
song I know,
left
Joe, the
left
NSYNC.
very, very early.
That's also
in
the only
band's
jazz I know as well.
history. Yeah, so I didn't know that. I didn't know that's where the name NSYNC came from.
No, neither did
I
I.
found that one
No,
out.
I didn't.
this
I
evening.
remembered what I was going to say, and it's twofold and completely non-connected. One is, where does the star come from?
Yeah.
Good question.
Because it could still be NSYNC without the star. Do you reckon that was like self-aggrandization by Justin, where he's like, I want to be the star, and because he's
yeah.
the first, isn't he?
On
So,
the
Yeah.
end, isn't it?
yeah.
And
And the second one was just a bit of an explanation with brass facts, so you know going forward. Bit of a tradition is that the fact master has the fact, but nothing else. So
Yeah.
if you ask any questions, if you manage to get any other backup facts, then you're
Right.
like, so like it's a tradition that
So
is
I
like,
can't delve for more
Yeah,
You could
insight.
try.
You could try.
I do try to research more into
Yeah.
it because we would. Yeah, but we used to ask more questions and be like, no,
Yeah.
I've literally got what I've written down. That's I cannot delve any deeper into that.
when Jed was doing it, he would just kind of like sink further into his chair as people were asking him more questions. But like on the when Craig did the 80s one, he actually backed nearly everything up, and it was
Yeah.
brilliant. But like, I can see it's a text format this time. So
I've got them written down. I know. All right. Okay. What should we go for next then? I've got one which was so the Hubble Space Telescope that was launched in 1990. So that has been up there for 20 years.
29.
Quick maths. And as you probably all know, the Hubble telescope was well known for having, what was it, a faulty lens or a faulty mirror that caused all of the images to be blurry.
Yeah,
So
one job.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money and got it up there, and they got the first images back, and it looked terrible. They were like,
that
no,
must be so
no.
disappointing.
So they managed to correct the error and fix it. So I think what we should focus on is some of the amazing things about the Hubble, and I've just got one fact which blew my mind about the Hubble Space Telescope.
You just greased over using focus.
I know, I knew I said it, but I just played it cool. I was
Yeah.
like, no, that's all right. I intended for that to happen. So, like any other camera, it needs to be stationary to take a great picture. And if you think about it, that's a telescope that's orbiting the Earth at 2,000 odd miles per hour, and it's got to focus on one thing for a set amount of time to take a picture of it. So it's able, the Hubble Space Telescope is able to lock onto a target with an accuracy of 7/1000ths of an arc second.
What the fuck
To
is an
equivalate
arc second?
that, it's the width of a human hair seen from 1 mile away. Is the accuracy that the telescope can focus on.
I fucking love science.
How? But so how?
I'm going to go with gyroscopes. I don't know. I do not know how.
That makes the most sense. I had booster rockets. It like fired off a booster rocket. It just stayed still for a second, then moved on.
It's I don't know how they can do it. I really don't. It's the effort that's gone into that, and just the maths that's gone into it to be able to figure out how to do that. You get the same with anything. When you want to send a probe somewhere, you're not just shooting off into space. You got to think, well, we're spinning at this speed, and it's this point in its orbit, and we've got to get it to land.
At this point.
By a crate, if they can get it to land within like a 5 mile radius of where they want it to land, that's incredible. Considering how far you're pinging it from and getting it to there. So,
That's one fun thing. Like I always think about time travel is like when in time travel movies, like you just travel back in time, you're in the same place, but like in reality, you'd end up in like
just floating
the
in space
sea or the space because
or you could even
everything's moved.
not to move this too much towards time travel, but you could even let's say you use the Terminator time travel where you have to go back butt naked. You come back and you could end up with a pole sticking out your jacksie.
Yeah.
you could just because Terminator. Oh, they actually counted for that. Well done, Terminator. Fair play. Because they come with a big bubble, don't they?
Yeah,
there's one where he goes through a fence. Doesn't they?
And it burns through the ground.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, well, disregard that, and we'll go with the Back to the Future one. He could morph in, and like there'd be a leaf just floating through, and all of a sudden that leaf's inside his body.
Inside your body.
How did we get there? It was the Hubble telescope.
Hubble telescope. There we go.
1990.
1990. It was launched.
Birth of the 90s.
So they were able to that technology way back then. They were still able to imagine what they could do now.
I don't want to know.
This is the crazy thing, and not to get way too into space travel and all of that NASA stuff. The computer that this handheld iPhone is more powerful than the computer that sent Neil Armstrong into space.
What?
Yes. Yeah. It's true. And it's also about 100 times smaller. No, more than that, probably.
I'm pretty sure a scientific calculator had more technology than what landed them.
I think the computers were like more along the lines of like the Enigma machine type thing. It's like a series of switches doing calculations rather than the complicated, watching cat videos machines that we've got these days. But yeah, but we still seem to be in a relatively stagnant state of space travel. I mean, they've got the ISS and everything, and all the satellites that control our lives. But you'd expect that, like, with the curve of technology, where we've gone from this giant computer that was basically an abacus compared to what we've got now, and now we've got these futuristic things that do everything, and but yet we're still just going up into space and coming back down again.
Completely unqualified to make this point, but I think it's actually propulsion that's the issue rather than the technology. Because
really,
because when you think about the car, a car until about nowish hasn't really changed.
No, that's true.
We've got about 100 years of not really changing the internal combustion engine.
You say that, I nearly got run over by a Volvo today because it fucking went.
It was silent. Yeah.
Like past me. And I was massive as well.
Yes, that is true. In fact, I think they're actually putting engine noises into some cars.
They put engine noises into the car through the speakers because it was unsettling for drivers to drive a car that didn't make any noise.
There's no warning.
Not on the outside,
pedestrians.
no.
Yeah, okay.
No.
But yeah, I think the problem with space travel is they could probably do a bunch of stuff around calculation and navigation and all of those kinds of things, but actually getting a big ass lump of metal up into the air still relies on a bunch of fuel being burned.
That's why we need to have a station on the moon
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
can take stuff up there and build stuff in orbit or build stuff on the moon and then launch from there because it's a hell of a lot easier.
Oh, so you're
But still, you got to get the stuff up there, but
Yeah.
you could do it in a gradual process.
so you're proposing like a docking base, like you go
Moon
to
base.
Yeah.
so you go to like a halfway point and then you go to the moon,
Yeah.
like in
They've been
Alien
talking about
Isolation.
space elevators for a while. So there's an elevator from space, so you can from the moon, so you can just go up and down through the
It's
to the moon.
actually Wonka's great glass
Charlie
elevator.
and the
Cable.
Great Glass Elevator.
Yeah.
Roald
Yeah.
Dahl. Roald Dahl came up with that concept. Credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
He's so good. He's so
But the
scientific.
cable at the moment, the cable is the limiting factor. It's too heavy.
Hey, what are you laughing at? He's being scientific.
No,
No, it's
not true.
That is
it is true. It is
You're
true.
pulling my leg.
No.
Honest to God,
They're
that's-
not. No, they're
Yeah,
not.
No, that is true.
It'd be a platform that hangs. So it'd be a cable down from the moon that is accessible from Earth easily, and then you travel up it. But the problem is the weight of the cable is too much because of the length of it. So if they can make the cable out of carbon nanotubes, for example, the weight to strength ratio is much lower or higher, I should say.
I would not ride on that
Read
motherfucker.
read the underneath.
Space elevator concept one. I would not ride in that.
I would.
Well, I think it's like a
Press every button
Alton
on the way
Towers thing.
I don't like riding a normal elevator.
Every time.
How long do you reckon that would take you to get up? That's going to be a long lift.
Can you imagine
ride.
if it got stuck? Oh no.
Just press the help button. Hello.
You get some like grumpy mechanic. What?
Just in a spacesuit, just hovering outside.
I'll be there in a minute.
Get for a whole album
Finish-
music.
Finishing my cup of tea.
Oh my god. That gives me so much claustrophobia thinking about that. Stuck in an elevator in space.
Cool.
And you'd be going really fast. Cause
You would. You'd go super fast.
You'd
I
be
imagine.
and also the Earth would be in orbit, so you'd be like, how would they figure that out?
Well, you could fly up to a platform and then go up from there.
Geosynchronous.
Geosynchronous.
You know, like the thing that's they use in the Star Trek film to mine down into the Earth planet. So it's a thing that goes from a spaceship and then as a platform, and then you're there.
Geosynchronous.
Sorted.
Geosynchronous.
90s.
Thank you,
Right.
Hubble telescope.
Thank you, Hubble, for that. Okay. Titanic.
Yes.
You got to bring up Titanic. It's the 90s.
Yes.
Biggest film in the 90s. Biggest film for I don't know how long it held record for until Avatar,
Recently,
probably, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, it was
Avatar.
Avatar, no, you're
Yeah,
right.
so
So-
2010.
And that was James Cameron again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So he just beat himself.
Yeah.
That's why he was so mad about the Avengers. And
Yeah.
like, belittled it because it wasn't him this time.
Obviously, an amazing film.
Yes.
Incredible. I like the film.
I unashamedly like
It's a great
Titanic.
film. I don't care. If, there's probably some haters out there, but I like the film.
I'm with
Yeah,
you.
you haters out there.
yeah, you.
Yeah, you.
I was
Yeah,
watching
fucking
a
rubbish.
documentary the other day about Titanic with James Cameron, and Mark was trying to call it out. I
wasn't trying.
What are you trying to call out?
he's trying to say that basically James Cameron is just playing.
I'm really
with
mad about the film, and I've been mad since. Okay, so I've been mad since the moment I walked out the cinema and my knee had gone to sleep because it was so long. My knee has never gone to sleep since. It had never gone to sleep before. It went to sleep, and I nearly fell over in not coming out of the cinema, but trying to get into Pete's car. Good old Pete. Yeah, I don't really. I'm not going to go into. You got a fact.
You might like this fact because it's a bad thing about Titanic.
Cool. It might be one of the things I brought up. I have a litany.
So, during the filming of Titanic, 80 crew members fell ill all at the same time, all on the same day.
It's a new one.
Some went to hospital.
Cursed.
Most of them suffered hallucinations. And they
Cursed.
found out it's because the lobster chowder that had been served was spiked
Chowder.
with PCP.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
Hang on, why did they fall ill? Surely they fall into a party.
They just got like a lot of people got really like were having hallucinations. Some ended up in hospital. 80 crew members taken down in one day because somebody spiked the lobster chowder
That's friggin' crazy.
with PCP.
God.
I haven't.
Did what happened? Did they find the person?
I don't think they never
No,
found
so
out
they
who
didn't
did
find
it.
the
Phantom
culprit.
Spiker.
No,
But why would you do that?
sabotage? Disgruntled crew member. disgruntled cast member.
Fuck you, James Cameron.
Someone who didn't like
Billy
the fact that it
Zane
was
going,
mostly fiction.
I don't like the role you've given me.
He scares me.
It was Catherine Bigelow.
Which one was she in?
It was ex-Missus, wasn't it? By that point.
Yeah, she directed
Point Break.
didn't she?
Yeah.
Which
Which I think makes it into the 90s conversation, Point Break.
It does,
yeah.
I think early 90s.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one.
So I'll park that for movies because that is it. That's in there.
I was just going to say, I learned an interesting fact in that documentary, actually, that Mark slated.
Did he slate the documentary, or was he sat there watching the documentary, slating the movie? Did you read the documentary?
Both. All.
No, what was the documentary about?
It was
Was I just talking over the whole thing?
It was them revisiting, because James Cameron, as we all know, breaks the world record for like the most visits to the shipwreck in the world. Like, he has done the most research, and they figured out. So they knew in the actual ship there was this grand staircase that you see in the film.
No,
but
it wasn't tearing the documentary to pieces. I was just tearing the film to pieces.
okay, well, but they didn't know when they go down to the wreck, it's not there, and they're like, "Where is this? Like, where is this giant staircase?" So when they're filming the film and they built like all the sets and like they actually flooded the sets. When they flooded that area, the whole staircase ripped up and almost crushed 2 crew members to death because
They were tripping on PCP.
Yeah. So they now know what happened. That staircase was torn out of the wreck and probably just floated off somewhere else.
Because it was a wooden stair, so it would have been buoyant, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
It would have just gone...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like they figured out lots of stuff about the wreck whilst they were filming it. Like loads of the dynamics of the actual sinking.
That's quite interesting.
As I do for several things, I will just state as a disclaimer that I hate it more for effect. No, I play up my hatred for effect. I hate it. but like it for some reason it really winds people up how much I have this disdain for certain aspects of the film. I think it's a technical masterpiece. I could never possibly take away anything that James Cameron or his incredible crew did for both filmmaking and that film.
Yeah, the endeavour was
lengths,
amazing.
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
the lengths they
that
went
video
to was insane.
you showed me of them building the ship.
Holly didn't know that the ship was like real.
I
She thought it
didn't
was all
know.
CG. There was a lot of CG that did it, but like she didn't know that they'd actually built a life-size replica and floated it as well.
That's crazy.
What, the full ship?
Yeah.
They didn't actually.
Or was
they
it
didn't-
partial?
They didn't
Two-thirds
float
old, wasn't
but- Sorry.
Was it 2/3?
Oh yeah, so
size,
it's kind of like they built a half of it, I think, or like they built everything.
and it was
that they
in
needed
the
to
ocean
shoot.
as well, wasn't it?
There was some that was in the
offshore
ocean.
somewhere
But there was some in Ireland. They built a massive tank
in Ireland.
Yeah, they wanted to do it because that's where it was originally. I think it was
That's
Northern
where
Ireland where it was originally built. So
yeah.
they wanted to do it as close to the original area so they could use some descendants of the original shipbuilding. So that I'm not just fussing around. I know my.
So what do you not
my
like
shit.
about it, Mark?
The fictional characters is my biggest problem.
You don't like the story.
I don't like the the story itself is kind of history, but like I don't like that they chose to focus the thing that the people find most tragic is that Rose what's his name, John died.
Jack
that Jack died. People are more upset about Jack dying than the human
Then the
epic
hundreds
human
of
tragedy.
other people that die.
yeah, that's true.
I think the counter argument is you have to look through it through the lens of the every person kind of character.
Yes, I totally agree. There's a film called A Night to Remember that was made in the 50s, which I think is a bit of a masterpiece. Wouldn't hold up, doesn't hold up. The shots are like cardboard, distant. It's a set like really bad, but like the way that they build the tragedy is more. They use personal characters who are real.
Is it still about the Titanic?
Yeah. The whole thing
okay.
is it's essentially kind of almost the same story. It starts with the journey towards the Titanic, goes through the Titanic, and interweaves with the people on the boat from the high class to the low class. But it manages to get your heartstrings on the event, not the individuals. The event is horrific and it's incredibly well portrayed. But then it also mixes in some fiction of real characters that actually takes away their real life heroic endeavors, such as the guy who shoots himself in the head, tells like people that there's no more room when there is room, then shoots himself in the head, something like that. Like the guy that's on the side of the boat. That's not true at all. He saved like 50 odd people and then died doing it.
Yeah.
And so like creating drama from drama, augmenting the drama, and then changing how people who were actually really heroic into, if you watch that, you know nothing about Titanic, you're like, oh, what a fucking mug, but that guy was a hero and the family was livid, mortified.
Wasn't it also the case that they kind of martyred the captain in the film?
Yeah.
But in real life, the captain was a drunk,
yeah,
a incompetent, and basically he's the reason that it sank.
He's one of the reasons.
Or one of the reasons.
The real heroes were the guys who like stayed right till the end doing
the violin people.
No,
which isn't true either.
The SOS, the people doing the like the SOS signals.
Yeah.
They stayed like they didn't have to stay, but they did stay like right until the ship sank.
But I do get it. I think that's the thing that gets lost in my ire is that I do get every reason why everything was done. I just think that maybe in combination with the fact that it became and I'll do this this is in inverted commas, people at home, highest grossing film of all time, because Gone with the Wind is, by the way, technically
adjusted for inflation.
Yeah, adjusted for inflation. I actually think it is on ticket numbers sold as well, but yeah, right. Adjusted for inflation, Gone with the Wind. But I get that it's aimed for the lowest common denominator. It kind of mostly exists to make money, but then James Cameron did so much for the Titanic Foundation and everything that you can't take any of that away, and I never would. And if it was beaten, if that film was beaten by the Avengers, I wouldn't be fist pumping. I would still think it was probably more a deserving film to have graced the top for so long.
It's a fair point. I mean, like to make entertainment out of tragedy is contentious. So I guess, do you look at it as a piece of entertainment which features tragedy, or do you look at it as some kind of, I guess, testament to the people who were there and so on, will inflect your view of the film?
Yeah.
The one thing I can say as a piece of entertainment is I'm not entirely sure I've ever gone back and watched the whole film again since I saw it at the cinema. It has been on.
Yeah.
I have tried to watch it, but I'm not entirely sure. I can't honestly say that I've sat there and watched every minute of it ever since. I always find a reason to get distracted or do something, or go, I'm going to come back in a bit when the ship starts. This is going to sound terrible, but when the ship starts to sink and actually it all kicks off a little bit. There are large parts of it which are melodramatic, and they're constructed, and the whole artifice. I mean, they even managed to get, the expression's going to escape me now, the MacGuffin. They even interject one of those into there, which is classic Spielberg and Cameron kind of territory, is how do I feel comfortable telling the story? Well, we'll have this big stone in there that actually forces the narrative. So there's lots of problems with the way that the narrative is constructed. But I do remember sat there in the cinema going, wow. And I guess if that is what it was trying to achieve, then it certainly did that from my perspective.
No, I do use the knee gone to sleep thing as a bit of a joke. That's revisionist history, because I left liking it a lot, but having a bit of a discussion in the car, because I remember the guy who was driving was quite obsessed with the Titanic, like built his own from parts from a magazine, and he really liked the history of it. So he was obsessed with that part of the film, and I was kind of already starting to deconstruct it a little bit, but not to the point where I wasn't liking it. I know like when I think in my head, I'm like, when did I stop liking it? And I remember I bought it on video. So I know if I bought it on video, I obviously liked it. I'm not going to buy it on video if I didn't like it. And I think it might have been when I first watched it again, and I was like, it clicked in my head. I was like, wait a second. And I'll come back to this a bit later on, because this happens quite often with me in films. Batman and Robin, which won't be on the list of discussions, but like that's the classic one. I loved it when we left that cinema at 4 o'clock in the morning in Taunton. But I watched it and I waited years to watch it again. And when I watched it again, I was like, oh no, they were right. It was rubbish.
This is a terrible film.
Why he got nipples on his suit?
We were delirious when we left that cinema there, weren't we?
Lost in Taunton.
Oh no, I love the Titanic. When
I thought you were going to say Batman and Robin.
No one loves that film.
I remember watching that movie first on video and then just like rewatching it repeatedly as a kid, because I was like, obviously as a young girl I was like, the romance, but also like I was like terrified of it as well, I had an obsession with the end scene of the ship sinking and being like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Like the fact that it breaks in half. Oh.
It's the guy that every time it's the guy that falls down and hits the chimney.
Oh,
Just
hit-
can't
oh,
get
yeah.
Oh, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like the propeller and the
All the-
help
It's
us
the
go.
gong.
Ooh, what gets me now because I watched it in the cinema and I probably watched it later. I watched it not that long ago, and it was just a passing shot of all the people in the water, and it's just a mum with a baby.
Yeah.
And that cut me deep.
Yeah.
That hurt. I was like, fuck.
But does that not go to show my point that maybe that should be the thing that your camera trains on,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
passes by?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
should be
That's the real
focus.
tragedy.
But then,
Not
like,
not scooching over so he can't get on a flotilla.
I think I'm probably making the explicit version of your point here, but is that almost too confronting for the commercial vehicle the camera was trying
Yeah.
to produce?
yeah, it totally is. And again, it still goes to
Would you have the
to
same
show-
views if it hadn't happened? If it was just a film about a ship that sunk and that the Titanic incident had never occurred, that hadn't happened, how would you feel about Titanic as a film? If it wasn't a true historical event?
I can actually answer that because of the Poseidon Adventure. And I feel
is
much...
that the upside down ship?
Yeah, the original, not the remake.
I don't like that one.
I feel how I should about Titanic, about the Poseidon Adventure, because it's an ensemble cast where you care about every character apart from maybe like the ones that you're the antagonists.
Right, yeah.
So, and you do get the tragedy along the way of the other people that are trapped in different parts of the ship. So the answer is there. It's yes.
Yeah.
I feel that the Poseidon Adventure is a much better film. But I do think as well that James Cameron probably looked to that film for a bit of inspiration.
Yeah. Those films I used to travel a lot on ferries when I was a kid because of moving around, especially a lot when we lived in Northern Ireland, between Northern Ireland and Liverpool, and that strait of sea is the most incredibly rough strait of sea ever. And I remember one time just being in the bunk and seeing the waves like smash up against our window and being like, oh my god, we're gonna die, this is gonna be like Titanic, we're gonna die.
I nearly took out an entire men's perfume display whilst hungover on the way back from Dublin in those seas. I was the one that decided to go shopping in the middle of all of it. Everyone's just sat there green, and I'm like, I gotta go buy some perfume.
It's crazy. It's a crazy sea. Yeah. And the fact, like, I know people do that, but I never got used to it. Like, or I just remember being sat at a table and my dad putting down like a bag of snacks and the bag just like flying off the table as like the ship like sort of listed to one side extremely.
Some of my favourite videos are the ones, the CCTV footage from inside like cruise liners when they hit rough seas, because it's the static camera fixed on the room, so the camera's not moving, but you just see people sliding across the floor, furniture sliding across the floor, going one way, then going back, people holding onto pillars sort of sideways, and you're like, this is bizarre. So weird.
The most trippy ones is when it's just like listed and then someone's walking down a hallway but they're like and you're like, oh my god,
it's like
dude,
something out of Inception. It's like it's all spinning around, you're walking on the side of the wall.
Not to get too much deep into film, but there's an incredible piece of set decoration that makes the Poseidon Adventure, it's like a central piece of the set in the Poseidon Adventure that makes everything more surreal and dangerous. Is the Christmas tree is still attached to the floor, which becomes a ceiling, so the Christmas tree is upside down, and it's so unsettling. And they keep it as a kind of focus because they're in the ballroom, they move around the ballroom and come back to it at points, and it's like even when it's filling up with water and your head's just like, why is the Christmas tree on the ceiling? And like it just keeps you on edge and unsettled, and I think that's why I always remember Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, that's a good grounding mechanism for that. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
It really annoyed me they ever tried to make it remake it. It's just don't touch something that's so masterfully done.
I used to watch it. So there was one ship movie I watched. What ship is it that got? It was like a British naval ship that got blown up by a German.
Oh, that's the one with the sharks.
No, there's one, and in the end, the guy's on the
that's not
lifeboat,
British.
and then he just like goes into a propeller. I can't remember. I can't remember.
That sounds like
ship it
Indiana
was.
Jones and the Last
It
Crusade.
sounds like a James Bond sequence.
No.
to me. I don't
It
know.
was a movie about a British naval ship that got blown up. It was. I can't remember what it's called. Like, it's an actual ship, but like again, it was focused around a romance and like woman's and this guy's on the lifeboat, and it's just getting like sucked towards the propeller.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was going somewhere else.
He was getting sucked off.
I'll let it in that way.
Said it was a romance story. So what else are you going to do in a lifeboat?
Get sucked.
Yeah. Go for it. Right, I've got one more. If you think we got time, I've got one
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
We
Alright,
have
then.
plenty of time.
Okay. I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think was one of the biggest catchphrases in the 90s?
Oh, I'm not very good at this.
Catchphrases.
This is my personal opinion, but I'd say a catchphrase, but it was something that everyone was saying. It was everywhere.
In the UK
90s.
or across
the UK, across the world. Yeah.
Can I ask a narrowing question?
Yeah.
What, did it come from a TV series?
It came, no, not from a TV series.
Did it come from like a TV show?
No.
Like
It was
a
on
game
TV.
show?
It's a commercial, isn't it?
It is a
Because
commercial.
I wanted to go with "You Know When You've Been Tangoed," but that wouldn't work across the world.
I'm gonna go for. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna slide back a bit from the mic. And I'm gonna go. What's that?
Didn't we have this discussion? Didn't we have this? We had an argument about this, and I don't know if it was recorded or not.
An argument.
And it turned out that was in like December 99 or something.
It's the 90s.
I know.
Don't care.
I don't know, but that was the argument. Like, if somebody was like, "That's not a 90s thing," and then, like, if somebody found out it was like December the 13th, 1999 when it premiered, or like something crazy like that.
But what I found out about
That
is,
was everywhere for
it was
a time, wasn't
everywhere. So the name of the guy that came up with the "was up" idea, he was called Justin Reedon, and for his efforts, he was given $250 as a bonus and a baseball bat with a motivational message on it.
Amazing.
For that thing that gave Budweiser. Was it Budweiser? It was Budweiser. They weren't the
Budweiser, yeah.
Budweiser frogs. That's different.
Yeah.
But for that, it went everywhere. Imagine the success of that, and they're going, yeah, $250 bonus and a baseball bat with "keep going, slugger."
Tragically, I remember the scary movie scene.
Oh
Yeah,
where
that
you're
just
doing
pops.
staying at home smoking a bud, and then
Yeah.
it's like Ghostface.
Yeah.
But that must have then been in the 2000s then, by extension.
Yeah,
So it would've been a year
I've
after.
seen it in
Yeah.
stuff like that's been made in the last couple of years. They still bring it up. It's people that are trying to be relevant, and they're like, "Where's that?"
When I
poor
was thinking
guy.
about this, I was thinking about the 90s and how, like, sure, we'll be disciplined and stick to, like, 1st of January 1990 through to the end of the decade. But for me, Batman, the Tim Burton Batman, represents almost the beginning of the 90s. And then September 11, 2001 represents the end of that decade, because I think, like, pop culture changed then. I think things got a little more serious and a little more scary. So I guess it's just a bit of an abstract point, but the 90s, you can ring fence to those 10 years, and that's probably what we'll talk about. But eras don't neatly fit in to those quite as much.
That's what happened with the 80s one. We just kept going.
Yeah,
into
so
the
I
90s
don't need to
Mark
talk
brought
about
up the 50s.
we don't need to talk
about.
about the late 80s and the early 2000s, but as an era of time, there was a tonal change after September 11 for sure.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of my lecturers specializes in literature post 9/11. Like, it's starting to become an academic field of before and after this event, things were different, and how did they change?
I still don't think. I'll just make this statement, then we'll move on. But I still don't think that, and even now, 18 years on, we're still aware of the seismic shift in everything that event had.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, I still think it's going to take like until the 50s of this century before people are like, when they can bird's eye view it and go, holy cow, that was a right angle. Like, literally the decade went left when it was going right at that point. I think that's going to be a difference. And it's really interesting dragging it back to the 90s that you see Batman, because it is an iconic film of the 90s almost, but it was 1989. But when we were talking about the 80s films, we were saying how interesting it is that the memory of the 80s is, let's just pick out some films like Ferris Bueller, Breakfast Club. We would chuck out 80s films, and most of them are going to be light-hearted.
Airplane.
Yeah, I think
Goonies.
just yeah.
Just.
But like you have like these films, and like it's almost like a happy memory of films. And then you go to the 90s, and your brain goes Matrix, Seven.
Yeah.
Batman's 80s, but like
So dark.
and all of a sudden there's a shift, and there's not actually an event, but it's interesting that you pick out Batman because that's a real dark entry into the.
Yeah, I think for us, we were born. Are you 79 or 80?
80.
Yeah, so born the same year, so we were primed to see something like that, and the fact that they came with this dark edge was a bit like, whoa, hang on, this is a little bit edgy. We're growing up. We're on the verge of like getting into teenage years, and all of a sudden, this is what being a teenager is like. This is fucking awesome, you know. But it wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
But it felt like this kind of whole new world for us, and just seeing that and coming out, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, which made me want to watch it like 50 times more. And then
My mum took me to the cinema.
did she?
I was 9.
That's amazing.
Yeah, your mum was notably awesome. To be fair.
It's interesting that you mentioned Seven, because that was a film I snuck into the cinema before I was 18 to see. So similarly, like, there's something that draws you to the darkness of the cinema of that decade. There was a little bit more. Even the violent films of the 80s, when you think about like the big action heroes of the 80s, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, it's almost cartoon-like.
Yeah.
The action movies of the 90s weren't cartoon-like. They had serious themes running through them.
And
I
I
so
think
dark and gritty. There's like a dark green undertone to everything. That's what I always think of those movies.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It's where you can't make it too dark, so you make it darker green, and like you put the filters on it to make it dark without being too dark. I think though you could probably pick out someone else who was maybe, so we were in our teens for most of it. You could maybe pick out someone who was born in like 88, and they'll be like, "What are you talking about? Little Mermaid, Lion King, Toy Story."
That's what I was going
like,
to say. It's the films that you were watching in the
Yeah.
80s were the child films, and then
Yeah, that's a good point. And then someone will also challenge what I've just said. Well, if you want gritty superhero films, then what about Chris Nolan's Batmans?
Yeah.
You know, because they might look at Batman Forever and Batman and Robin and go, "That's not dark. This is dark," and they'd probably have a point. But there was a change of tone, I think, around that time.
I think the mainstream became not even the mainstream, but like the films that really stand out in tone. So there you go. So the films that stand out in tone, like the Sevens, the Matrix, the Face Off, the John Woo type stuff,
Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight Club. Yeah, like those kind of films. Then you go backwards and you have your tone, and it's all teenagers getting away with stuff. That's your tone. And there is, like, again, there's the violence that had more cartoony stuff. But we have a section for that.
We do.
It's called movie.
Fashion first.
Let's go to fashion first. Let's change direction. Okay, yeah. So fashion we're going to do, and then we'll come back to movies at a later time. So as I was looking into the fashion thing, I found that there was a lot of 90s nuanced fashion. There are some big beats, and then there are some particularly funny things to talk about. So I went with kind of the funny things to talk about. And I also had to tailor it. When I was researching it, nearly everything that came up was quite American. Some of that made it over here, but some of it was quite specific. So I'm doing this from a UK point of view, which you'll see by number 2. And I think actually number 1, so that leads me nicely into number 1, which is shell suits.
Of course.
Shell suits.
Shell
yes.
suits.
So fashionable.
Good place to start.
I am actually holding up images for the guys at home, but I mean, you can literally. What I did to get these images was Googled shell suits, so you can do that for every image, and it will be one of the first things that come up on Google if you want to see what we're talking about. This is a catalog image, which is even better.
That's so beautiful.
And the way that the guy's looking at her with such love, and she's just got her eyes closed.
Yeah.
How much is that shell suit?
That's they were expensive.
Wait, how much?
It's
is
39 quid. I wouldn't want to spend 39 quid on a shell suit.
But that, if you think about that now, that's like 150 quid.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that is a lot of money for 90s people.
So I don't know if either of you or Holly, if you had a shell suit.
I didn't have a shell suit. I I did have some pretty weird clothes though.
Ooh, I've just remembered something else. I tried to stay away from things that have come back.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like,
Oh, yeah.
what's the point? There was a hell of a lot of stuff. Like, the number one on this 90 list was Air Jordans. And I was like, well, they never went away. That's not 90s fashion.
Yeah.
They never went away. They've brought a lot of them back recently, but like, Air Jordans are timeless.
It's chokers at the moment.
I have not seen anything like what you're showing.
Chokers,
Now-
mum jeans.
Possibly not full sets like these, but if you go to festivals, the tops are everywhere.
Right.
Because reclamation is a big thing. Vintage clothing.
Yeah.
With the last festival we went to, there were 3 or 4 vintage shops, and you could buy these, and they would probably cost. This is from a catalog. It says $39.99 for a full set. It probably costs 40 quid for just the top now.
Yeah.
But I remember wanting one for ages, and when I got one, I was ecstatic. They were like the most comfortable thing. I mean, on the inside, because they were lined with cotton.
Yep.
On the outside, you couldn't move. It was like wearing a tent.
Yeah.
Like, if you couldn't move without it making some kind of weird rustling or zip
Yeah.
noise or something.
I had the it was purple. The main colour was purple with then pink. I think pink and blue were the accent colours on it.
I think purple might have been
Yeah.
an omnipresent colour,
But
because
it
mine
was-
was black, purple and red.
Yeah, it
I
was
was-
taken away from me though as soon as the
Oh.
bonfire adverts came out
Yeah.
about shell
Oh,
suits,
God.
and it was like, don't let your children wear shell suits near a fire; they'll die. And my parents were like, "You ain't wearing this anymore," and it was gone. The shell suit was gone, probably thrown on the bonfire. In fact,
And also possibly why they haven't come back.
I probably had the best 90s outfit, which was a skirt and a vest, like a made out of.
Don't go too far.
Why?
Don't go too far. Unless it's a shell suit related thing.
No, it was made out of the material
Okay.
of the shell suit.
When you said skirt, it would have.
It was like,
was gonna step on
I was
something.
sort of like 3, and it was like a vest, like coat made out of like shell suit material, and it was lilac, and a skirt, and
Purple again.
there was like
purple was a big colour. I
yeah,
think.
and there were like drawstrings at the bottom of the vest, and then drawstrings at the top of the skirt.
Well, look at the 90s logo that you've got for the Pretty Random podcast
yeah.
as well. Look
Yeah.
how much purple features in that.
I didn't
It's
even do that on purpose.
Yeah.
It's a big colour.
Um,
Was that homemade? Did someone make that for
No,
you?
it was bought.
Yeah, it was bought. Oh, right,
Bought.
okay.
That has reminded me, before I go full. Oh, I'll just say the other thing I had. I don't know if you remember, but the 90s managers, England managers kit tracksuit was a shell suit, and I had one of those bought from Weymouth Market for about 15 knicker. And I think if I'd ever even walked within about a mile of a fire, I probably would have gone up like like Guy Fawkes. I've completely forgotten that I was going to ask you at the beginning. What's your beats of 90s fashion?
Low cut jeans, like vest, like string tops, bandana tops. What I always think about.
What's a bandana top?
Yeah, but we're men. What's a bandana top?
Basically, like the shape of a bandana, but like as a crop top.
Oh, a crop
right.
top.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I ruled out
Loads
because
of crop
they've come
tops.
back massive.
Like dad trainers.
New Balance.
Dad train.
New Balance.
Yeah, kitten heels.
Whoa, what the hell?
What's a kitten heel?
Like the heels that were really strappy with like a heel about like that.
Right, Holly's showing about 10 mil.
Like really tiny.
I had the instant vision was. Do you remember the episode of The Simpsons where Disco Stew had some? He was trying to sell some disco boots
With
that had
the
gold-
fish in,
gold
yeah.
fish in. I had the same vision, but with kittens inside.
Oh, no.
But then
Disco Stew.
I also think about like grunge fashion, so just like a lot of like really slouchy, or what were those jeans called as well? Not grunge, more probably like hip hop, but the ones that were like massive.
Spliffies,
Yeah.
blue bolts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like massive.
Number 2 on the list.
Yeah,
Yes! Nailed it! The best segue ever. Number 2 on the list, Spliffy jeans.
Spliffy
Yeah, yeah.
jeans.
So these were massive, and like actually the picture
Were
that I've got,
literally and metaphorically massive.
like tents.
the picture I've got here are tame. compared to some of the ones
Yeah.
I've seen. You
Yeah,
could,
those are.
I could get two of my legs into
Compared,
one leg.
compared
of
to
my
some of the ones
spiffy
you've
jeans.
seen, what about some of the ones you used to wear?
Oh, yeah, some of the ones I
Because
used to wear.
there is a picture of you at our favoured caravan establishment,
Oh, yeah.
Freshwater, where you got into your pair of jeans, and they were so big.
Well, like a sleeping bag.
He pulled them up all the way, pretty much up to his shoulders.
Oh, they did. as well.
You just got in them.
Yeah, they were
Oh my
massive.
goodness.
They were massive.
I think there was someone.
we could have camped in those jeans.
I
We
think-
didn't need a caravan.
I think me and Tom Gordon got into one pair.
Yeah.
Like at some point, but they had this loop on them that was kind of inexplicable for a fashion accessory. And
It's a
then-
hammer sling.
Yeah, I know. I found that out later on. My brother told me, but like that was after he was dragging me around by it. But yeah, they had that like piece of fabric that kind of crossed across the back of your thigh. But this pair here aren't spliffy; they're knockoffs,
Yeah,
which is probably
those
more
weren't
likely.
nearly
than-
as big as I was
spluffies.
thinking.
Well, I don't know what it says. It looks like it says.
Whiffy.
It looks like it says Sahish or something. And the guy's holding a or the girl is holding a baseball bat.
Those are like playing it safe for me, like what I was thinking in my head.
Oh yeah, I couldn't find. Oh, I could find pairs, but they were weren't on someone, so they didn't have the context of how big they were. But I kind of like this set the scene. But yeah, but the other thing is these carried on into the 2000s upcoming podcast, where you'd go to gigs and like people would be walking around, they'd be dragging half of the town behind them, like down where they'd stepped on them so much.
They were insane.
I have so many memories of just like wearing like flared jeans as a kid and like getting them wet at the bottom and having it like slap against you.
Yeah.
No.
That's the best way to describe them. It's like a flared jean, but the flare is the entire way up.
All the way up.
Yeah.
It's just the whole.
The flare does not stop.
And they were always black with brightest white stitching, and then this giant
Design.
like bold design of a stoned, kind of probably a bit racist character on the back.
Yeah.
Now I think about it, although I think he was white. Maybe they avoided that. But yeah, it was like very stereotypical, and like nobody ever really knew why we were wearing them. But then one thing I left off was the accoutrement. I don't know what it is in fashion for the accessory, but like the thing you'd wear, naff jackets. But they were high priced, so not a lot of people really had those, and they were horrible looking, so they never really made it in. What was your female fashion that you went with first?
I think the first thing I went with was like low-rise jeans, like super low-rise.
Hip huggers,
Yeah.
is what they called them. So yeah, hip huggers is what they're called on the list.
Yeah.
And
Good old Christina.
that's an example of hip huggers. So they're extremely low-rise jeans.
That seems like a
Basically-
high. Hang on, bring that a bit closer to me. I'm older.
They're just above her midriff.
Okay.
Not a midriff, sorry. Her foo-foo.
They're disgusting. Like, no one except extremely slim women could pull those style of jeans off.
Yeah, you get muffin tops.
Yeah.
All over the shop in those.
I mean, I put this one on because she was the pioneer of it, really. Like, when Genie in the Bottle, like, the video for that, like,
My favourite
was that?
song.
that I want to say 96. Genie in the Bottle.
Wait,
After Britney?
no.
It was
Yeah.
it was just after her initial rise.
Okay.
I think it came, like, on the tail end of the fame of the first album,
Okay.
I think.
So good.
But yeah, the video to that,
96, 97.
I don't think they were jeans, but she had like, again, she probably had to do some hedge trimming to make sure.
Yeah.
I haven't got any good. I don't have any more good segues. So the next number 4 is skirts over trousers,
I love the skirts.
which has
over
never come back
trousers.
for a reason.
No.
But this is the image that I'm showing is
Wow.
from Bewitched, because Bewitched were they wore denim for days. Like, I could have gone with an image of steps, but that was their ones were really stylized. Whereas this is literally a denim skirt over a pair of jeans. Like, they are just wearing a pair
What
of
was
jeans.
the thinking?
I don't really know.
I don't know, but I liked it. That look got me hot. I don't know what it was about it. It was I can't remember her name.
That's another thing. Platform sandals. Genie in a Bottle was 99.
What was it?
So that late, was it?
Yeah, February 99.
Oh, I always had it a lot earlier than that.
Was it Tessa at college? Does that remind?
Tessa from
Do you
college.
remember Tessa at college?
Does she have brown curly hair?
Yes.
Yes.
And she did the skirt.
Was she in your class?
No,
Oh.
no. But she did the skirts over the trousers. Oh, fuck.
That's a real strange kink
That's a
there,
weird
Craig.
one. Yeah.
So I try and get Libby to do it all the time now, but she just won't.
Can you imagine Libby turning up to work one day?
I want you to put more clothes on.
There's, in this as well, though, there's various versions because you've got the straight up skirt over trousers. Then you've got the dress over trousers. Then you've got, I'm not really fully committed to this, so I'm going to wear a long coat so it looks like a skirt over trousers. And then go fuck yourself, am I wearing a skirt over trousers on the left there?
Yeah.
Yeah, she.
Do people still tie their jumpers around their waists? That was a 90s thing, wasn't it? To tie your jumper around your waist.
Jumpers, not so much.
Or a sweater or whatever, an overgarment tied
still
around your
done.
waist.
Like shirts, I think shirts is pretty timeless. I think jumpers I don't see as much.
I saw something the other day where rather than tying it around their waist, they had it so it was going over one shoulder and then under the arm and then tied.
The teenagers these days are wearing anything they can in. Do you remember those bags that we had that had one strap that went from one shoulder to the other side?
They were
of the
really
waist?
bad for your posture.
Everything about them was wrong. That's come back. So now if you have a bum bag, that's how you wear your bum bag.
Right.
And like, I don't know if they don't put pockets in teenage boys' jeans these days, but everyone has one of these bags. Or like you said, they'll tie their things that they don't want diagonally. It's like a sash. It's like they just don't have enough sashes, so they want to bring it back. I genuinely have no idea. But
You kids!
that's
Kids in your fashion!
that's enough about our fashion. Now, bring it back to number 5: global hypercolor
Hypercolour.
t-shirts. Yeah.
That
Look at
t-shirt
these.
legitimately says "touch me."
Yeah. Do you know what these are?
No.
You don't know what these are.
They're
I don't know what
heat-reactive
these-
t-shirts.
That hand print there
It's
was made
from-
by that guy.
Excuse
You
me, sir.
put your hand on the t-shirt and it changes color. It's heat reactive.
So what would happen was
A lot of
underneath
kinky
your armpits and
teenagers.
so on would always change colour.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, show all your hot
God.
spots.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they were. I actually looked at trying to buy one the other day because you can still get them on eBay. And I guess they don't run out of their magic, whatever it is.
The spell lasts for 1,000 years.
I don't know how it works.
In the global hypercolor factory, there's a series of wizards.
It's gnomes in my head.
Another one done, boss.
So what I've
Leviosa.
Yuck.
global hypercolor. What I've done for all of these things that I've got on this Word document is I put in the wrong link by the looks of it.
Amazing.
No, so I put in a link to the original article on every single one apart from the fashion one. Well, I think I did that for a reason because it's really long. But there were things like Timberlands, check shirts was one thing. One thing I nearly put on here, but I went for global hypercolor and instead was vertically striped, long baggy jumpers. It was a Kurt
So you
Cobain
just
thing.
said vertically, but you moved your hand.
Yeah, I know.
in
I
a
did.
horizontal
Yeah,
fashion.
yes. But it was horizontal. What I meant, yeah. Trust the hand, not the mouth. That's what she said. What else? So yeah, the grunge. There was kind of like there was the sections of fashion. You had like the big standouts were grunge. What I would call the clueless fashion. So
Yes.
the Alicia Silverstone film era fashion. The
Bucket hats.
the Britpop fashion.
Yeah.
Like the John Lennon glasses, bowl haircuts, the
Damon
bucket
Albarn
hats.
used to wear like a tracksuit top, Adidas one, I think, red, zipped all the way up to,
Right up to the
there.
top, yeah.
And now again, see, part of the reason why some of these things like grunge fashion never died, that has come back big time.
Yeah, you're right.
The Britpop fashion, it's just kind of like, it hasn't got some of its extremities attached to it. You don't like, you'll have bucket hats at festivals. Again, I keep referring to festivals because at festivals you get all of these fashions in abundance. and it's like they really want these to be fashions, but they can't break out of the boundaries of the fields. But I think 90s it's iconic because I think it's probably the one that has actually bled either forward or come back strong on nearly every single thing, apart from some of the things that I've mentioned there. And I think it's really interesting.
There's a really iconic picture of my mum in like 1990 wearing just like a strappy black dress, a choker, like a velvet choker, and then her hair tied back with like 2 strands of hair just coming down here. She was like goth.
One of the other ones was snap bracelets.
Oh, snap bracelets, yeah. Yeah.
That one hasn't come back. Snap bracelets.
No, they're still about.
My kids wear them.
Yeah, the other day, Ruby brought some home.
Okay, so those came back as well, so I'm glad to bring those ones up. Fashion.
Does it seem like 90s fashion kind of... It seems like it was an out-breath, like a relax on 90s fashion. Well, 80s was kind of... There was a lot of, I've got to do this and I've got to do that.
There was
and
a lot of structural...
Yeah, and then 90s is like, you know what?
Wear whatever you want.
You know, you that's where it felt like not everyone... Maybe not everyone was wearing the same thing, doing the same thing.
I think you're right.
There was a bit more individuality. It sort of broke off into more factions in the 90s.
Yeah, so
it's what I kind of got.
You're saying that the 90s are the lounge pants of fashion.
Don't diss lounge pants. I love lounge pants.
Oh, I'm not
I wish I was wearing lounge pants now. It's like a hot mess.
I got compliments for my lounge pants last night on the stream.
Oh, yeah,
because I've switched to wearing lounge pants.
They're the best. Lounge pants are the best.
Star Wars lounge pants.
Oh. They're PJs.
No, lounge pants.
They're lounge pants.
They're PJs.
Lounge pants.
They were pajama bottoms.
So yeah, we've gone nearly an hour and a half. We've gone quite a while on this one. So what we're going to do with this week's podcast is we're going to give you a double whammy, and we're actually going to leave it here for tonight and carry on in about 2 minutes. In about 2 minutes. But we'll release it a week. We're like going to have 2 lots to listen to. We'll release it in 2 parts over 2
lucky
weeks.
Things, you.
So yeah, come back next week and you'll be able to listen to the follow-up of music, movies, and TV. Oh, and you get an outro as well. Because you're not going to get it now. This is just me waffling.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. To be continued.